Welcome back to the Blue Wave. I'm your host, Eric Heffinger.
And I'm Sohan Manik.
Sohan, where the hell have you been? It's been like a month and a half since you recorded an episode.
I know. It's really been a crazy June.
You're a terrible podcast host.
Yeah, we're... Thanks. Yeah, it's been a crazy month. I think we both went on vacations. Yours probably a bit more exciting than mine because you went pretty far, which we definitely need to talk about. But I had a little vacation of my own. Had a couple weddings to go to, and then we took a bit of a road trip up through New England. We went to Maine.
You said we. I'm not a part of this.
Not you, sorry. Me, a friend, and a dog, which was the best part, really.
Are you saying you're...
No, my friend's also
not great.
My friend's also great. But have you ever taken a road trip?
Dog was there. This person sucked.
But the road trip with the dog was the best because we went to Acadia National Park, which made me realize I need to go to more parks, state parks and national parks because they're incredible. But tell us, where have you been?
Peru.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It was awesome. I led a trip of a group of 20 of us from the high school that I work at. Took some students and we went to do an exchange program, and we learned a lot about Peruvian culture and South American culture and the food and the sights and
Machu
Incans.
Picchu.
We saw Machu Picchu. We hiked a bunch and we got altitude sickness and all the fun things you do when you're in Peru. And it was probably one of the best trips I've ever taken in my life, and it was awesome.
So
Awesome.
what do you have a top 2 or 3 things that happened on the trip? I know you saw a lot, right? I mean, based on the different communities you visited, and obviously Machu Picchu and hiking.
I mean, I went all the way south, all the way down to Puno, which is right on the Bolivian border on Lake Titicaca. And I think that was one of my favorite areas because it was the least touristy area.
Yeah.
And I saw some areas that were like, ooh, this is sketch. And then I also saw some of the most amazing things like Tequila Island, where you could see Bolivia on the top of the island when you're standing on the mountain that's there. And the culture and the people that were there on the islands were just awesome. And so I love that. And then you can't beat Machu Picchu. And then I took the hike to the Sun Gate. I didn't get to do the 3-day climb all the way up to Machu Picchu. That takes like a year in advance doing that, and I had like 20 students, so that wasn't going to happen. But I did the hike from Machu Picchu to the Sun Gate, and looking back, and it's just amazing. The mountains are just like straight up walls. It's something so different that you don't see here, and
Yeah.
beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful.
Well, that's on the list. I also want to go to the salt flats in Bolivia. Those are supposed to be just stunning.
Yeah, Peru's got those too, but I missed those.
Fair enough. Next time. The most exciting news, though, and on this podcast we talk to a lot of officials who hold positions in government, and I'm very excited to say that I can now interview Eric as our next guest because he has been appointed to the city council here in Medina for Ward 3. How did it happen?
A little bit of luck, a little bit of magic, and the right timing, I guess.
That sounds like a very common story, actually.
I just moved. Before we started this podcast, I moved from one side of the city to the other. And it just so happened that a little bit before I left for my Peru trip, the city councilman resigned and left open a slot, so they had to appoint. And I took a stab in the dark. I threw my name into a hat, and it turned out that there weren't all that many people from the area that threw their names into the hat, and I used the people I knew, and a great speechwriter named Sohan Manik helped me write a speech, and I was lucky enough to be chosen to be the Ward 3 city councilman for the city of Medina.
It's incredible. Tell us a bit about the ward.
It's the southeast portion of the city, basically. It's not perfect, but it's cut kind of like a pie. There's fourths. The city is cut into fourths. Okay. And it's mostly residential. A lot of developments, middle class income. But I mean, we've got major businesses. We've got low income housing. We've got everything in between. We've got some very wealthy housing. So it's just kind of a slice of Medina. It's everything in between.
So one of the things I'm going to force Eric to do now on this podcast as we go forward is I want to know exactly what he experiences on a day-to-day basis here, because this is such a cool experience you're about to have, not knowing exactly what you're necessarily getting into. So tell us about the first couple meetings. What did what kind of books?
First meeting.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I've had.
Oh, you've had one meeting. Right. This is great.
We're on summer break now. So I was chosen I was sworn in, I had one meeting, and now we're off for the rest of the summer. So I haven't done much.
Well, what's step one? I assume you have to meet the constituents, get to know everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's my goal, right? Get my name out there, let people realize that I am their city councilman, because most people don't even know who their city councilman was before he stepped down and whatnot. So my goal is right now to start knocking doors. And I'm up for a re-election or retainment. I don't know if it's re-election.
Yeah, I don't know what the term is.
We're going to call it re-election.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm up for that next fall. So November 2019 is when I would rerun for this position. So this year I'm not even asking for votes. I'm just literally trying to learn what my neighbors want.
It's a great opportunity. You don't have to do that, right? You can just be very.
I'm not asking for anything.
Right.
I'm asking, what do you want right now?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm starting to do here and figure out.
So to ask you a very politician question, but what do you think are the big issues facing Ward 3 in Medina?
The issues that face them a lot are the same things that they ask of their state representatives and whatnot. And, I'll do what I can. There's a lot of things that as a city councilman, I'm the most local representative that you could possibly get. It's the smallest jurisdiction that you can find. So some of the things are big, like it's a condemned building that I'm trying to figure out what to do with. We're talking about trying to, as a city, come together and write legislation that will help protect LGBTQ people from being fired from their jobs just because they're gay or any sort of discrimination in businesses. So we're trying to figure out the language with that. So those are huge things. But most of the things that I'm going to be doing are working on the most local level possible. And we've got problems with our sewer line. We've got problems with no one's picking up the trash on time. It's the most local government. So while I'm going to tackle these bigger issues as they come, I mean, we're talking about everything from buying new equipment for the police department to cell phone regulations from the state being handed down to us that we have to enforce in our area. I mean, those things are important, but what really matters to my constituents is, can I help them in their most immediate needs in their community? And that's what I'm going to try to do.
Well, and the greatest part about, as you were talking about being the most local official for constituents, is you are going to be able to have your hand on the pulse of what people are actually thinking and caring about in the community, right? I mean, there's such a disconnect as people talk about, your representative in Congress, even your state senator, forget like the president, right? But you are actually going to be able to see what are people actually worried about and concerned about, and what things do they need. So, I mean, it's just going to be an incredible learning experience.
Sure. I've only been in this position for a week and a half now. So I can't go too far into detail because I don't have the details yet, but I'm learning, and my ward is a couple square miles across, right? We talk about congressional candidates, and they're talking about, huge swaths of the state that they cover. I don't do that there. I'm not changing too much. So I'll be able to literally knock on every single person's door in my ward. That's not going to be an issue. Yeah, it will take me months and months and months, but I can do it, right? Whereas someone running for Congress, or especially Senate,
right?
There's no way in hell that you're ever going to be able to personally talk to every single person that can vote for you. And that's my goal. I got a year and a half, basically. In that year and a half, my hope is that I can meet, 75% of the people that live in my ward at some point, knocking on their door or meeting them at events and stuff like that, and let them know who I am.
Yeah, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like my intuition is that the partisanship strips away a bit at the local level. I mean, I'm sure.
Where I'm at in my city, we don't run on a partisan ticket.
Right.
You run independent.
Yes, that's good. So you don't have to deal with the, when you go door to door, there's not just that, oh, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, and people just sort of either turn their eyes away or turn off. Like, you can
haven't had any instance where anyone asked me that. I figured it's going to happen at some point, but no, it's a pretty red area. I mean, it overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, and but I'm okay with that. I would need to know what they want me to do for them, and then I hope that they can also listen to me when I disagree with them because I helped them at some other point.
Yeah, and it's your community too, right? So
right.
It's
I live here.
Exactly. Well, it's incredibly exciting. Congratulations again. I can't wait to keep talking to you about this as we go forward and you learn more.
Me too. I'm so excited to learn because each day I'm learning something new.
Well, so a lot has happened in the past month since we've been away, obviously.
A ton. And we have been absent on Twitter, on Facebook. We took that vacation very seriously.
We did take it very. I always take my vacations very seriously.
Maybe a little too seriously because of everything that's happened. You're like, holy cow.
Yeah, let's talk about what's been happening. We left off right after the primaries, really, in Ohio here, and we talked a bit about what those results meant, including with some candidates who didn't win and their thoughts. And a lot has happened since then.
You know what? Where I was as soon as I left off after that, it was I went directly to Peru basically after we finished that last episode, and I was there for like 2 weeks or so. And that is when Trump met Kim Jong-un.
Right.
And
that seems like ages ago.
I know it seems like ages ago. And I was there for so long, but yes, that is, and I'll tell you what, we may not pay attention to South American news at all. And I've learned a lot about their politics and then whatnot while I was down there. And I made sure to talk to people about it because, well, I'm a nerd and I'm interested in that stuff. But that was on the news constantly. They certainly knew who Trump was.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly knew who Trump was. And Trump was just as much as a joke as you would think he would be. And they didn't know how to take him. They really didn't. They didn't understand what we were doing. But, I looked at their government. I looked at some of their local leaders and we were talking about them. And they're very Trumpian.
Well, it's a very common thread that's going on globally, right? This strongman, sort of far-right authoritarian leader who's more of a celebrity, I guess, or more of just a showman.
I was in one town. It was a major city. And in the southern part of Peru. And we were driving through, and we were on a major highway, and then just stopped, and we had to turn in the city, and suddenly it was dirt roads in these metropolis, which is ridiculous. And then on top of that, a lot of the sidewalks had been jackhammered out. And then I was told by our guide that the mayor was up for re-election this year, and that he was somehow involved with the concrete business that was there in town, the concrete factory. And so he had jackhammered out the sidewalks in front of businesses, telling people that if they wanted their sidewalks back, they would have to re-elect him as mayor.
Oh, that's just, wow.
It's crazy. It's very crazy. And that's very strong, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the art of the deal. It probably wasn't art of the deal.
You read it, right? Take their sidewalks out.
Great deal. We live in a strange world. I mean, we always have, but particularly now. I mean, you talk about that meeting with Kim Jong-un, and obviously now Trump recently went over to meet with NATO, and it went to the UK and is about to go meet with Putin in Finland. It really has changed my perception, at least, of what America on a global stage means. When you talk about people don't know how to take him, I don't think we know how to take him either, Donald Trump. But it's very clear that he sees his relationships with other leaders as America's relationship with other countries, which is crazy. If he has a good relationship with Angela Merkel, the United States and Germany are doing great. That's not how it's supposed to work, right? I mean, relationships between countries involve far more than who insulted who.
You know what I'm learning on the localist level is that all politics, they say that all politics is personal, but it's all about your relationship. So far, what I've seen is if you have a good relationship with someone in the community, you can work with them.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, they're going to work against you. Even on a local level where you see these people a lot, I see people that work against each other because they don't like each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think when you look at let's talk about something else that just happened, which is that crazy rescue in Thailand of those kids, right? And that was such a global effort. I mean, you had the U.S. military there, you had the Thai military, obviously, you had Australians, you had Brits there. I mean, it was a massive. I think thousands of people were actually involved in coordinating that effort to rescue those boys and their coach. That is how countries can interact together on certain levels, right? And then when we look at the higher levels of what Trump's doing, and the show that he's putting on for the headlines, how the media is taking it and everything. That's one aspect of it. And it matters. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we could all die in a nuclear war based on how all that goes. But I think when you look at the fundamentals of how people interact and different organizations interact, that gives me hope, at least, that we can still maintain that even though whatever is going on top.
Our current leaders in the government really want to divide us in a lot of ways, right? And they play off those divisions. But let's be honest, 13 boys or 12 boys and their coach from a soccer team is trapped in a cave. That's not a partisan issue that you can divide in any way, shape, or form. And that's human, right? We all wanted them to survive. No one wanted to get the report that all the boys died in the cave, right? So there's a lot more to us that connects us than divide us. But we hear a lot in the news things that divide us, and they play those up so much.
Yeah, well, and the reason they do is because it works, right? I mean,
it totally works.
Yeah, it works. I mean, and again, in the news was, more about Russia and the interference in the election. There were just 12 indictments against 12 Russians who, very clearly acted to interfere in the 2016 election.
So we all know that Putin is going to walk into Helsinki and he's going to be like, "Hey, give me those 12 Russians, and I will." I don't know, not nuke. What is he going to do? Nothing. He's not going to do anything. He's just going to be like, "Hey, buddy, you're awesome. You're my hero, Putin."
I mean, he just wants to be liked, right? So if Putin can like him,
I guess
it's just going to be that's all he wants.
No, I don't know if I agree with that 100%, because if Trump just wanted to be liked, he wouldn't play such a hard game against half the United States.
I'm not saying he wants to be universally
liked. He loves people coming against him. He loves a good enemy.
Of course. I'm not saying he wants to be universally liked. I'm just saying I think he craves the respect of certain people and certain groups of people. I think when he sees that people in the media don't take him seriously, it really annoys him, which is why he watches so much cable news, because I think how he's perceived matters to him, and when people think he's a
100%.
joke, it really. I mean, I think this whole UK trip, what I think,
blimp baby.
That's what bothered him the most, for sure.
The blimp baby.
That's absolutely what got under his skin the most, and that says a lot. That is. There's so many issues going on. And
listen, I disagreed with Bush a bunch, but you remember all the protests that happened in the Iraq War and all the statues and figures and costumes they made about Bush during that time?
Yeah.
And never once did he bring it up or seem to let it bother him.
I mean, I'm sure
Trump one thing seems to be like it's eating at him. They made a baby blimp about me,
and he won't even go into London,
right?
It's a different kind of person that we've never had before. Obviously,
history in the making.
Yeah, that's some kind of history. But as we go on, I mean, the time now, all of this happening, just shows how important this year is, how important November is. To me, it really feels like one of the last chances we have. If that dividing strategy works, and the Democrats can't actually ride some type of wave and take back the House and the Senate, I mean, at least one, but I know the Senate's a bit harder. It says a lot about this country and where it is if the Republicans can still maintain a majority.
Oh, for sure. If we can't win in this year, if we can't push this wave forward, I don't know that's going to happen.
I mean, how can you think about look at the Supreme Court. You had Justice Kennedy retire, and this fight that's about to happen. Democrats can't really do anything procedurally because, you only need 51 votes. This is something that should ignite the base, right? Saying, oh my God, we need to do something. If that doesn't do it, then we're really in trouble, folks. I mean, that's why the Republicans are so good at mobilizing, right? They know how important judges are, and their whole machine can sort of turn to make sure that they get what they want. And they're succeeding right now.
But you know what? The Democrats are easily distracted, very easily distracted. And I think that's why Trump succeeds more than he should recently. I mean, that first year of his presidency, I don't think he knew what the hell he was doing. I don't think anybody knew how to handle him, and they struggled. But since we're talking January this year or so, it's been a lot of wins in the Trump tally board. A lot of wins.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the main things is people always don't really care about those other issues when things seem financially secure and the economy is still doing great. We keep adding new jobs, stock market's going up. I know, we can talk a lot about the long-term effect of the tax cuts and the deficit that we keep, piling onto. But in general, the metrics are all on his side for people to sort of give him a pass on other things. I wonder what it would be like if there was more economic anxiety. I don't want there to be, obviously. But I think he's just riding this wave and is able to collect those wins, like you said, and he's helped out by these external circumstances.
But that doesn't mean that he won't keep winning because, Kennedy was, a week and a half ago, and then suddenly here we are, and I hardly hear anybody talking about the seat.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. That's the part.
We've moved on. We're talking about the G7 summit. We're talking about him meeting with Russia.
Yep.
We're talking about a million other things that he's done in a week's time to piss people off. And it's so distracting for what people really need. And I think, so often we lose sight of the actual goal or what we need to force because we're fighting so many battles on so many fronts.
It is, and you're right. We have to be smart about what battles we fight and what we talk about. But even more importantly, it's just about you have to get to a fundamental level, right? I mean, you need to talk to people who vote about what they actually want their country to be. And maybe this is an important time for America to decide what type of country it wants to be, right? I mean, we're always having that discussion on some level, but post World War II, it's been kind of set.
I'm just afraid that people are going to be so turned off that they just walk away. How many times have you heard people say, I just don't want to vote because I hate both candidates?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, I think I think a lot of times that's because people say both candidates are kind of the same. Like it doesn't really matter who I vote for because it's all the same stuff. I don't think people can get away with that excuse this time because
I thought that last time.
I thought that last time too.
I was wrong.
But I think last time, I think people knew they were obviously different, but I think people just personally didn't like either of the candidates, and that was an issue. God knows people should still vote, but you're right. People get turned away by it, or get caught up in the distractions, right? It's so hard to get real news now, unless you know where to look, and it's so easy to kind of stay in your little bubble and get siphoned, all of this conspiracy stuff and just start believing it.
Well, God knows our Congress still believes in a lot of this conspiracy stuff. Did you watch the Peter Strzok interview, the congressional committee investigation?
I watched a lot of it. I think it went for 7 hours or something like that. I watched a lot of it. It hurt my soul. Like, I really mean that. Like, it hurt my soul. I cannot believe that was supposed to be taken seriously at all. It almost felt like I was watching an SNL skit.
I kept turning it off, and a lot of times I turn it back on, and they wouldn't even question the guy. They would lecture him on how bad of a person he was, and then when he would try to respond, they're like, "I'm not done. Oh, my time's up. I'm done." I'm like, what the hell kind of investigation is this?
It's a show. It's a show.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's really disgusting, and they're trying to prove he's partisan in the most partisan way possible.
I think this is one of the biggest problems. Is to us that looks like the Republicans are just absolutely putting on a show and being crazy and belligerent and absurd in what they're doing. I think to Trump supporters, when they watch that, they think, got him. Like,
we yelled at him, we got him.
We won that.
Well, then how do we connect this reason together? There's no connection here.
I don't know.
How do we bring these people together? Because if we're talking about having more commonalities than disagreements,
it's
how
tough.
do we bring these people back into the fold?
That's the Democrats' challenge, right? I mean, you need to be able
to...
I
quit.
Right, yeah. Come on, councilman. Get it together. No, but I think it's really important to think about all of those issues and with more context and depth. And that sort of leads to what we want to do, I think, on this podcast going forward. We've talked to a lot of candidates. We've talked to a lot of people about different topics, but we really want to nail down on some specific ones and get into why they are the way they are, why the sides look at them the way they do, and where America is on them.
Yeah, we have to figure out how we can approach people that have voted for Trump, and then we need to talk them into why they should vote for us. Actually, one of those things I want to talk about involves Danny O'Connor, who is running in Ohio in the 12th district for a special election. It's coming up August 7th. And what should be a tidal wave for the Republicans is kind of a toss-up right now. And I want to read you a portion of a New York Times article about him. He met this woman called Tammy Halliday, and I'll just read you this from here. All the data showed that Mr. O'Connor, a Democrat running in August special election for a House seat here, was all but wasting his time. But when Halliday asked him his stance on gun control, things got brighter fast. Mr. O'Connor said he favored an assault weapons ban along with preventing people with domestic violence records and mental illness issues from having guns. Do you take money from the NRA, she asked. No, Mr. O'Connor replied. I have an F rating from the NRA. With that, Mrs. Halliday, who voted for President Trump in 2016, said that she would vote for Mr. O'Connor.
Yeah, that's great.
That's everything that they would tell you is anti-Trump voter.
Mm-hmm.
And here he is on her doorstep telling her this is what I stand for. And I don't think we really know what a Trump voter is. And I don't think we need to really dive in. I think what we really need to do is figure out what we stand for as Democrats and what we're going to fix and change. Find those policies that work best for those people, go out there and tell them, and I think they're going to be impressed that we actually have a plan.
Yeah, and be proud of it.
Be proud of our plan.
I think that's part of the problem too, is people are so sheepish about it because they don't want to either cause offense or trying to toe a line and sort of be in the middle and please all sides. I mean, Democrats are just a collection of affinity groups
that's what
sometimes,
people blame
right?
politicians for in the first place.
Yeah. I think that's what, if you can just get out there, and I mean, that's why sort of people more on the far left are succeeding. I mean, on the Bernie sort of wing, right? Because they're really proud of what they believe in, and they know what they believe in, and they're not afraid to say it. I'm thinking of the congressional race in New York, where you had somebody who calls herself a democratic socialist win when she says it with pride, and when she explains why she is that and why she believes the things she does, she doesn't hesitate.
I think that energy and that ability to say why I believe in something is rare these days. A lot of people just believe it because they've always believed it. They can't explain to you why they justifiably want to go out there and do it.
Well, people want a leader, right? That's sort of part of it. People, like, so many times Democrats are like, okay, what do people think in this community? Let me try to just fix my positions and my values so I can sort of cast the widest net and get everyone involved, so I can make sure everything fits. I'm not saying not everyone has ideals, but I mean, that's how a lot of politicians work, right? Let me see what the community feels and I can try to match up what's going on. No, like, you need to be proud of your positions and then convince people to follow you. Because you should know what's right for this country. You should have a view for this country. You should have a passion for what you want this country to be, your district, your state, where your city. It's just so rare these days because you're so afraid of casting one group aside or misjudging something and just getting thrown aside. We need to be better at that.
Yes. Well, that's voters and community members and whatnot as well, because when you talk to your neighbor, even if you're not a government official, you shouldn't be scared to say, this is why I believe the things that I do. I really believe that if we go out there and we keep educating as many people as we can, we'll win. And I think education is really the key to keep pushing this.
Oh, agreed. Education, and you hit it on the head. I mean, having that conversation.
It's talking to people.
And I'm glad you're going door to door. I'm glad Daniel O'Connor is going door to door. I think that's what's going to make the difference in a lot of these areas. And we need to have those conversations on this podcast going forward too.
We're going to ask some questions about specific issues coming up, like Sohan said. So we're going to be talking about, in the next couple episodes, we're going to talk about immigration and trade, which we feel that are two really big issues that everyone's talking about right now. And we're going to try to find you some people that can explain why does they believe the way they do, and we'll try to decipher how that can help the Democratic Party as a whole.
Exactly. We're going to dig a bit deep. Immigration, obviously, a big subject, not only in the United States, but globally. Trade as well, as, this supposed trade war with China heats up and we sort of realign our relationships with the EU and Britain. We want to dig in, give a bit of context and talk to some people who can educate us, hopefully you, and we can all talk about this in a better way.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Follow us online on Facebook and Twitter at Blue Wave Pod. And we can't wait to put out the next episodes. Can't promise you it's going to be on a weekly basis like before. Just got a new job.
You know.
A little busy, but we will keep up with this as much as we can. So stay with us, and we will stay with you.
It is good to be back. Thank you for listening.